everyone, I'm Matt, Client Success Manager for White House Custom Color, and today we are standing in beautiful Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We're so excited to be back out here working with Florence McCall Photography again. I was actually out here 3 years ago, and White House and Flo worked together on a studio redesign for her at that time. We've gone through the last 3 years, seen what's worked, what didn't. She has a whole new set of images in her studio now, took a look at the numbers, what was really selling. We're really excited to share that with you. The prints are already up on the walls. It looks great in there, so let's go into the studio and check it out. We are now inside Flo McCall Photography, and I am standing with none other than the wonderful Flo McCall. So thank you so much for having us.
My pleasure.
It's great to be back after a little over 3 years. Yeah, so awesome. So we are going to take you on a tour of the new design of the studio, and we're also going to touch a little bit on what we did 3 years ago. We're going to talk more in depth later on about how that affected your sales and things of that nature, but it'd be kind of fun to refer to what was here before on our way through. So as we're going to go through here today, we're going to tell you about each of the individual groupings, discuss kind of the design idea, why Flo decided to put the product in here that she did for her clientele. So let's start with this one. And I love this grouping. And this actually was inspired by the recent redesign from NP Design.
Right, like 2 weeks ago.
Yes, exactly. So on this wall, we do have a float frame acrylic, which some of you probably aren't aware that we even have that available, but it is available online through the website now to order. So you can do a float frame acrylic, and then also next to it, we have 3 squares that are on the float mount. So I remember when we were originally talking 3 years ago, when you have your clients come in after their session, they sit down with you at your desk, you're using your TV to project, you wanted to be able to sit at your desk and not have your client get up and be able to look around the room and pick.
Exactly.
Yeah. So with this particular grouping, what was it when you saw that you were like, ooh, you text me right away, you're like, ooh, I like this one, I'm going to do this one. So what was it about this grouping that really caught your attention?
Well, that's a really good question. When you showed it on that other studio redo, there's something that really, it was very clean and contemporary, and it wasn't too big, it wasn't too small. And I think it offered, a couple different sizes with one big presentation and just a couple to the right. I don't know, I think it was just kind of a clean presentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is what I really liked.
And I could also see this if somebody says, well, I want to do a large grouping like one of these behind us, but then I also like the way that those 3 squares look vertically presented.
Right, exactly.
That'll fit into a little tiny space.
Exactly. What I liked, I think another thing is this was, it fit into a narrow place.
Yes.
And everyone has smaller walls in my studio, so.
For sure. So we moved from the awesome acrylic presentation to a very large 40/60 metal white base high gloss indoor image, which is technically or traditionally not your brand of a model, with the homes in Jackson. Large homes, beautiful spaces. The metal, what is your thought process of putting this into the homes out here? Like, what is the application for this? Is this more of a studio style? Is it more for your outdoor sessions? Like, what are you thinking there?
I think that what I was looking at is I wanted a big, powerful piece that people would stop and look at it to begin with. And then they'd be like, well, oh, wow, this would be really cool because it's such a big piece. Yeah. And that, yes, the homes are huge here. So I'm saying that you can have a close-up a picture of a face close up instead of far away mountains, and that it looks fantastic in the house, and it's more really something to make people stop and look. Yeah. And then I really like the metal because it's contemporary, and people, if they have a contemporary design, that they can see potentially how it would look in their house. So really to encourage people to go bigger. And even if it's a picture of a face, that it looks great blown up. And I think I was looking for variety, so not every picture on my wall was families in front of mountains. So I was looking for some variety. And because I do other things, and people could be like, oh, well, I could get a portrait, and it doesn't have to have mountains. So it was kind of leading people in a different direction if they were bored of the same old, same old.
Yeah, completely different look from you know, with the beautiful mountains in the background to, you know, an indoor, well-lit, you know, more model commercial style portrait. Because I know that you have a lot of repeat clients, people that come back to you year after year. So to be able to say, okay, this year we're going to do this. This year we're going to do this.
And that's what I did actually. A client came in yesterday, and year after year she would get 24 by 36 metal color prints, and I was like, okay, she needs a black and white. And so I suggested it to her, and she's like, great. And so you help them along a little bit. We all need a push.
Right, yeah, for sure. And we are, as in you, are the subject matter expert.
Yes.
When somebody is in here, they are looking to you to suggest to them.
They want 200% of my opinion.
Yes.
And it really, really helps them. And so that's why I did a redesign, because I was like, I now know exactly what they're looking for, and they need options, they need sizes, and so a lot of my redesign had to do with sizes and options of presentations.
Yes. And I remember too, and we'll go more into depth later on this, but our first attempt at these two spaces 3 years ago didn't end up to be the most efficient use of those spaces. So when you were looking at the redesign, this is completely different from what was up here before.
Yeah.
So, and there were spots in here that we'll talk about that worked wonderfully.
Yeah.
And some, like these two, that just didn't.
Yeah.
And we learned and moved on.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So let's kind of move into your like living room environment here for a minute. So originally, 3 years ago, we had 2 different groupings in here.
Right.
We had one that we did the Whopper here, which was, what was it, 10 pieces?
Yeah,
roughly 10
and
or 12 pieces?
huge.
It was huge. And then we did a group of 3 over here. Looked beautiful. It was a little bit busy, but what ended up happening, if I am correct in this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this one ended up being too big.
Correct.
Yep. So even as the Whopper, you know, you're going to hear that when you're at presentations where people are speaking. Always have the Whopper. It's always good to have big stuff. We went a little bit too big, and that ended up not selling what we thought it should. So when you redid this, it went down a little bit.
Right. The client ended up buying it at a discounted price, and that was great. And I go to our house, and it's displayed, and it looks good. But I think it's very rare that people get like really big presentations, and I think we were inspired to do it because I have such a big wall.
Yeah.
So then I kind of learned scale it down and still have big pieces like a 30 by 40 and 24 by 36s, but just a little bit more realistic for people's homes.
Right, exactly. And this is anything but small.
Right.
It's just a scaled down version of what was here originally. And then you have the beautiful 4060 acrylic. Again, beautiful family image with the snow-capped mountains in the background, the awesome dog. So you have, again, 2 large presentations, a large wall grouping, even though it's smaller than what was there. Totally different look. So it'll be fun to see how this works for you versus the old one.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And just to also point out, like when clients come into the studio, this is kind of where you're directing them to look right away, because this is where the couch is at, the chair, the lamps, your desk is over here. So think about that when you're designing your space. You want to capitalize on what I refer to as kind of like the Gold Coast walls, or the most valuable real estate in the space. If people are going to be sitting in a particular area, or you're going to direct them to look there, make sure you put your products there that you really want to sell and that you want to promote, that's maybe new to you or something that's tried and true. Whatever that is, make sure you capitalize on those areas. So let's move down the way here just a little bit, Flo. So obviously this is where you do your work.
Yes.
And you do your sales.
Yes.
So again, you did a great job of thinking through what we did last time, because there was a different family grouping here. And you wanted to be able, again, to have your clients sit and show them different surfaces. So walk us through your 4 different options here.
Let's see, let me come over here. So basically it seems like no one ever wants to get up. They just want to sit and just look. I mean, I used to get people up and walk across the room, and that became very difficult. And so when I sell things, people are like, well, you know, what paper, what framing, what this and that. And so I felt like it was very easy for me to sit here and go, all right, this is a metal print, black and white in a float frame. This is a canvas in a float frame. And this is a photo print paper in a float frame. And this is acrylic. So this gives you the 4 options that I love from White House Custom Color that I feel very confident selling, and I know how to print. So this was key. And the size, I could have gone a bigger size, but my wall could only fit so much. I mean, I could have gone up, but a 20 by 30 is kind of an average size that people buy. So, and it doesn't look too big on this wall here. So it really, I mean, I used it yesterday. The client always wanted metal, and I'm like, okay, here you go, black and white. And it was like the easiest thing. So I'm so glad I did this. And you could also use it as a grouping of 4 images in a row. I think that's a beautiful presentation of doing 4 in a row or 3 in a row, and you can see how nice it looks. So it serves multiple purposes.
Right. And so far, is this working well for you?
It worked instantly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. Because what was there didn't work.
No, not at all. I had a presentation of a family of 6 that not one sale came from it, not one inquiry, nothing. I was like, okay, got to get rid of that.
Yep. And I applaud you for recognizing those things. You'll text me and be like, this worked great. This is kind of lagging a little bit. We need to change this.
Yeah.
You know, you communicate very well in that and you log those things. So if you have a studio space and you've been in it for a while, it's always good to take a look at those things. Take a look at what's selling, what's not. Sizes that are selling, sizes that are not. If you want to upgrade, if you want to grow your business or grow those print sales, and you have things on the walls that aren't moving, get rid of them. Move on, do something different. We learned a lot in the last 3 years.
Oh, definitely.
And it's fun to see how, you right away the excitement was, growth, and then it kind of tapered off, and then with the new design, then the growth comes again. So make sure and stay excited about your space, because then you'll be excited to sell and excited to show people.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday when my client came in that I've had for years, the studio just got cleaned up, things were off the floor, and I felt so proud and so comfortable and so confident. I mean, I've been doing this for 28 years, but it made a significant difference that finally it was here, and I could stand proud, which is huge when you're selling, you know? I mean, I'm like, okay, this, and this. And last year, I didn't have the stuff on my walls, and it was kind of embarrassing. I'm like this professional that have been doing it forever, and I didn't. They're like, well, what size, what paper? And I'm like, well, it's kind of like this, and it's kind of like that. And I'm like, that didn't help.
Right.
I mean, so it was difficult forcing myself to make sure I had to get the right sizes, the right presentation, and the right collection. But I am so glad I forced myself. I mean, I think I sat for a couple weeks at my desk going, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I knew it would come, and so it was just worth it.
Yeah.
So. And
since you are on this path, something that we were talking about last night that I think is really good to keep in mind for those of you that are inspired, by the redesign and you want to work in your own space, you want to put people on your walls that you enjoyed working with.
Oh, yeah.
That you genuinely like.
Yes.
Because if you're going to look at them for a couple years or 3 years or 2 years, whatever that may be, you want to have good memories of that session. Plus, those people are going to refer more people like them.
Right.
So I think it's a really good point that you made. So our next grouping here, next to your desk. So if I remember correctly, what was here 3 years ago was a multi-surface grouping, set up a little bit more horizontally, where this one takes on a little bit more of an oval shape.
Right.
But in this grouping, you have fine art canvas, you have torchon, fine art paper, as well as photo paper.
Right.
So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but again, you're using that to show that you can do different surfaces, how those surfaces interact.
Yeah.
Yep. What has been the client reception to the fine art paper? Have you been doing quite a bit of that, or is that fairly new?
Well, it's kind of, it really actually goes back to another webinar that I was watching from you. And the guy's like, what do you have hanging at home? What do you like? And I realized everything I had hanging at home was not here at my studio.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh my God. So I went home and I looked at everything at my house and the stuff that I love and all my friends come over and see. I was like, I need to have it here because I love it. And so I've just really reintroduced art paper. So this summer will be a big reflection of what really happens. I can't really tell you that yet.
Got it.
But
That'll be a good check-in for 6 months from now.
Definitely. So I would say we all know that canvas sells like that, and just as a wrap or in a float frame. So that's why the whole display over there is just canvas and a float frame. But I was like, you know what? I want people to walk in and be like, wow, look at that picture, and I want to know that I love it and that it's at my house. So that's why I went with this. And a lot of my clients will say, well, I already have a collection on my wall and I want to add to it. So this display here is saying, you've got color, you've got black and white, you've got different frames, as long as you have the same theme. And the theme is me as the photographer. So they'll come year after year and just kind of add to their collections. And so that's what this display is about. And then also, I just wanted to show different surfaces so they could choose what they liked.
Right.
So yeah, that is what this is about.
And you're 2436 down to a 1616 square, 1218. You're showing a lot of different sizes in here for options for people. So I think this is beautiful. And after being in your home, this looks like exactly what you have on your walls. So you fit the bill. So let's move on to the one grouping that has stayed. And I can remember when we were working on this, and this was one of my favorite ones when we were designing in the iPad app, and it still is to this day. And I have heard you say, I love it. People come in, they just gravitate towards it. So what do you think, or you probably have data on this, what is it about this particular grouping that you love and that your clients love so much?
Well, okay, so once again, you're mixing black and white and color. And not all of the images are framed. It's just one center, big, powerful piece in the middle, and then balanced with their kids on the side. So to me, it's clean, it's simple, it's contemporary, and not too confusing. So I think that, and it's really well balanced. And the thing is, you can take that same thing and go smaller. So if people don't want a 30 by 40, they can go smaller and still get the same. Or bigger. And still get the same look to it. And so people are always coming over here and being like, oh, okay. So, and they get inspired. And that's really what it comes down to, because I don't know about you guys, I rarely have clients who really know what they want. And so you're just like, okay, well, you could do this, you could do this. And if I just speak to them for 5 minutes and find out who they are, what they like, what their house looks like, and their lifestyle, I can instantly have a vision and be like, this would be great for you guys. And they're like, oh, you're right. And I get clients all the time that email back, the products are beautiful, thank you for being so professional, we're thrilled 100%. I mean, out of 28 years, I don't think I've maybe had a redo because of damage or something, but people are thrilled when they get the final products.
That's awesome.
And that's why White House is so great, because it comes ready to hang.
Exactly. So I do think it's also very important, for those of you that are listening right now and looking at this amazing space and hearing you talk about, your art and seeing that the quality of your imagery, to be like, wow, that I don't even know where to start. But 3 years ago, or a little bit more, you sent me a picture of this space, and I can remember you were like, I'm on sensory overload. There was stuff everywhere. And we went back and forth, and I said, Flo, I think the best thing to do is literally just start over. Let's just clean it out, and we're going to start over. So if you've been in business for 1 year, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever that is, just because you own it doesn't mean you have to use it. You can start over. And another thing that I thought was brilliant when we were out here 3 years ago, you took everything down off the wall, you had your assistant photograph it, email it to the client, and you sold those pieces to the clients.
I would say 90% of them.
Yeah, so instead of recycling them or having to store them, you made that into a profit center to be able to finance the redesign, so if you do have a lot of things in your walls, think about that. It takes a little bit of time investment. Just sell them, and reuse them. And another note I want to make sure as you're watching all these videos, to notice how this feels like a gallery. There is not a lot of things around. It is not cluttered. It's very clean. When you walk in, it feels like you're walking into a high-end retail establishment on Rodeo Drive. And you want people to understand that when they come in and look at this and go, oh, I could see any one of these things in my environment. I think you've done a fantastic job of making that feel here.
Good.